Nerd alert! Learning is important, right?
Yes, exactly. What a bunch of nerds.
Nerd alert!
Right.
Marketing Architects.
Hello, and welcome to the Marketing Architects, a research-first podcast dedicated to answering your toughest marketing questions. I'm Elena Jasper on the marketing team here at Marketing Architects, and I'm joined by my co-host, Rob DeMars, the Chief Product Architect at Misfits and Machines.
Hello.
Hello, we're back with your weekly Nerd Alert. Every week, I'll take a deep dive into academic marketing research and translate its complex ideas into simple, understandable language for Rob and, of course, for all of you. Are you ready to nerd out, Rob?
Elena, my third-party data says I'm 87% ready, but my first-party data says I'm at a full 100.
Oh, nice. Let's take that first-party data answer and go forward. Love it. Relevant. Let's get into it. As always, I'll link the research we cover in the episode notes. This week, I read a study titled How Effective is Third-Party Consumer Profiling and Audience Delivery? This is by Nico Newman, Catherine Tucker, and Timothy Whitfield, published in 2018. But before I get to the findings, Rob, I wanted to ask you, when is the last time you encountered an ad on the internet and thought, I don't know if this was meant for me?
Pretty much every time I go onto Amazon, for one, because I share an account with my wife and two kids in their 20s. And I would just say in general, all the time. Just very frequently. I don't know what it is, if I'm just some weird anomaly, but there's just all kinds of weird stuff being served my way.
Yeah, same. I think the one that comes to mind for me recently is I was looking up like pictures of haircuts to bring to my next haircut. And for some reason, I ended up being retargeted on Amazon for wigs. And I don't know exactly what happened. But yeah, I don't know if some kind of data set got shared or what happened, or maybe like I looked into an image that was from Amazon. Maybe I was thinking that could be it.
As a bald man, that one I would actually accept if I was being targeted wigs. But
I mean, it would probably make more sense than me at this point in time. But all right, well, we've all probably encountered this almost on a daily basis. You see an ad, it just doesn't seem like it was meant for you. And sometimes this is due to a marketer like us using third-party data to target our potential customers. But before we get too far into the study, Rob, can you help us out and can you explain the difference between first-party and third-party data?
Yeah, I'll try. First-party data is when you have the information in-house. So as an example would be you're going to bake some cookies and you've got this classic family recipe that you pass on from generation to generation, and all the ingredients are there because it's your grandma's recipe and you know it's all good. Third-party data would be like buying cookies from a guy in the back of a Toyota Corolla. And he's just saying, you're thinking you're going to get the chocolate chip cookie. Maybe there's going to be some raisins in there. Maybe it's going to be delicious, or it might give you intestinal issues. Is that pretty good?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting the cookie example. But yeah, first party data is data you have on your own customers versus third party data, which is something you're purchasing from someone
I suppose
else.
And not to be confused with the other kind of cookies in marketing. So I suppose that's
yeah, maybe not the best example. But no, that's great. Thank you. I want to make sure we get our terms straight before we get too far into this, because we are going to be talking a lot about third-party data segments. The authors wanted to answer what seems like a straightforward question. When we pay to target specific audiences, so people with particular demographics or interests, how often are we actually reaching them? What they did was they ran 3 large-scale field tests across 19 different data brokers. They tested over 90 audience segments and worked with 6 major DSPs. So this is a really comprehensive look at how well third-party targeting actually performs. It wasn't just one data set or one DSP. They looked at a lot of different things. Let's talk about what they found. Study 1 simulated a typical programmatic campaign. This could be something that your brand is buying digitally. They use demand-side platforms to deliver ads targeting men aged 25 to 54. Then they used Nielsen's digital ad ratings to verify who actually saw the ads. And the results showed that on average, 59% of the impressions reached that correct demographic. So that might sound decent, but if you just served ads randomly, you'd hit that target 26.5% of the time. So yes, it's better than random, but only because the baseline is so low. And you're already laughing, it's going to get worse.
That's hilarious. Okay, keep going.
That targeting came with a cost, right? Extra targeting doesn't come cheap. They also tracked brand safety and bot traffic, and performance varied significantly across DSPs. So it was anywhere from 40% to 72% accuracy. So that's just saying how accurate the DSP is in predicting brand safe inventory. Are they serving them to bots or not? And then in study 2, they went further. Instead of running full campaigns, they looked at the raw accuracy of the data segments themselves. Seems important. They compared the broker's demographic labels, age and gender, against self-reported, verified data from a consumer panel. And when they looked at it this way, the average accuracy for identifying men aged 25 to 54 dropped to just 24.4%. That's worse than random. Gender accuracy alone averaged 42%. Not great. Age share accuracy hovered around 10 to 32%, depending on the range. Crazy. I mean, that's really, really, really
Wow.
bad.
Wow.
So, Rob, why do you think it's so hard to get age and gender right when we're using third-party data to target?
I'm a 51-year-old male who likes to watch The Bachelor. I don't watch football. And my favorite food is sushi and White Castle hamburgers. And I listen to Public Enemy and Taylor Swift. So how does that fit into a box? I just think there's probably a level of precision that is trying to be attempted here that isn't really capturing the true uniqueness of the people that they're trying to capture into bucket.
Yeah, no. And you also have a very small online footprint, I would think. So it's probably pretty hard, right, to get
Right.
data on Rob DeMars to even see that you're interested in those things.
That's a
How
good
much of that
point.
is obvious online? Yeah.
It would definitely not be obvious.
No, so obviously there's a lot of different reasons why this happens. I mean, it can be a technical limitation, privacy challenges, even like incentive misalignment. A lot of this data that you're buying from one party was actually bought from another party and another, right? And you have to kind of track the incentives, right? You might want to give more data versus making sure it's entirely accurate. So whenever you're buying from a third party, it's bound to get a little sketchy. There's one part of the study that really caught my attention, and that's when they looked at households with kids. Accuracy dropped even more. And you just mentioned, Rob, that you have an Amazon account with multiple people in your family, which is probably explains why this is happening. The researchers think it's because multiple people using the same device confuses the algorithms. So say your kid's watching Bluey on your iPad. Congratulations, you're now a 4-year-old cartoon puppy enthusiast, at least maybe from a data broker's perspective. Then in study 3, we pivot from demographics to interest-based targeting. And finally, we have some slightly better news. When you targeted interests like sports, fitness, or travel, the brokers did a little better. Accuracy climbed to the 70 to 80% range. Still not perfect, but this kind of contextual targeting was noticeably stronger than the demographic attempts. Now, this study also gets very practical. They ran a cost-benefit analysis and found that third-party audience targeting often just doesn't justify the cost unless you're using it for higher-priced media. And that's what we found too. If you're already paying a lot on a CPM basis, then that increased premium won't be as much. For something like display, where CPMs are lower, the performance just isn't worth the premium. And I'll also add here that you should be trying to acquire your media for as low a cost as possible without sacrificing quality. So if you're doing that well, I think it's just going to become harder for those kinds of brands to justify the cost of third-party targeting in most cases. One of my favorite takeaways from this study was this quote: "Third-party audiences are often economically unattractive," which is a very academic way of saying this probably isn't worth what you're paying for it. And the study shows how risky it is to blindly trust your segments. If you're buying men 35 to 44 who like golf, there's a good chance you're paying for mismatched impressions, which could lead to a lot of waste. So if you're a brand manager or a media planner, it might be time to ask yourself, do I actually know who I'm reaching, and is it worth the extra cost to try? Because if your third-party audience is less accurate than random guessing, it might be time to rethink your targeting strategy. We'll wrap up with a Rob GPT. Buying a third-party data set is like paying for a VIP concert ticket and ending up in the parking lot. It's expensive, noisy, and you're nowhere near the audience you asked for.
Not as, how did you say that again? It's not as good as random. That's how I felt when I took the ACT. I would have been better just picking it randomly.
You really think so? Yeah, I mean, that's crazy age is definitely one of those things.
Oh.
Less accurate than just a random guess. Again, I know we've talked about this a lot. I think that we have such an addiction to certainty, and just marketers now, modern marketers have been trained, make sure you're reaching your exact target. And so we'll pursue that even when it's taking us down avenues that are leading to the direct opposite of what you're trying to do.
Well, it shows you how good of a job we've branded digital as a channel, right? Because you just assume accurate. You don't even drill into it. And whenever you say something like third-party data, it sounds so smart, right? Because it has the word data in it. But is the data any good?
Exactly. Yeah. And I know we've covered studies like this before on the podcast, but I just think is obviously still such a giant challenge that anytime we could bring this up. I know Nico Newman has a lot more other studies. He's kind of the expert on third-party data targeting, so I encourage people to go and look into his work if you're interested in it. But definitely something to consider testing, turning off, and seeing what happens.
I'd love to hear the other side of this, if there is one, because there's enough people out there selling third-party data to go, how do you dispute it? Because it's such a great study that you shared. So what's the counter to it?
Well, they mentioned it a little bit in the study, which is if you're buying expensive media, then the cost of targeting on top of the CPM isn't going to be as significant. So again, I think really this all just comes down to cost, because I'm fine paying extra to make sure I reach my right target. It's like I'm going to pay more to advertise at an event with marketers in it than I would advertising on a bench near my house, as long as you can confirm, who you're reaching, or at least the cost of it is enough to justify their performance. So I think it probably comes down to performance is a big thing. But again, I think this debate can get sort of personal, but if we can focus on cost, I think that's the best way to make the case for this. Is if it's just too expensive, it's not going to be worth it, let alone that it's inaccurate. But yeah, I guess the case for using it, I suppose, would be testing and seeing I'm sure that even the study found there's a big range of how good or poor a third-party data set is. So you probably want to test it out for your brand. I know for some of our clients, when we've tested it, we've consistently found that it's not as effective, but I do think we have a use case or two where a certain third-party data set was helpful for a client. So I think you just need to be skeptical.
So not all third-party data is created equal. You could just leave it at that.
Perfect. That's it for this episode of The Marketing Architects. We'd like to thank Taylor De Los Reyes for producing the show. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, and if you like the podcast, please leave us a review. Now go forth and build great marketing.
Marketing Architects.